I'm doing this video to help Windows users who are curious about Linux and would like to try it. This is intended as a fast preview of Linux Mint and is not meant to be comprehensive or in-depth. Now, there are literally hundreds of Linux distros to choose from, but one of the most popular is Linux Mint. It's a great distro to start with. It's familiar and comfortable for anyone used to Windows. Here is Linux Mint's website. There's a link in the description below. And if we go to the Home tab and go down to the bottom, you can see Linux Mint is free of charge, as is its software. Back to the top, go to the Download tab. And this is where you can download ISO for any of Linux Mint's flavors, such as cinnamon, mate, or XFCE. And then you can use a tool such as Rufus or Etcher to make a bootable thumb drive to use as an installer. So let's look at Linux Mint. So we booted up a brand new install of Linux Mint Cinnamon. And the first thing you see is the welcome screen. And a good place to start in that is First Steps. In First Steps, you see System Snapshots. And it's good to launch it and set it up so that once it's set up, it will make a system snapshot for you at various times, so that if something would happen to go wrong, for instance during an update, you get a bad update and the system is not working the way it should, you can go back to a previous snapshot when everything was working right, and you have a nice backup for your computer. And this does not necessarily back up your files or documentation. And then in documentation, there is a lot of information for you how to run Linux Mint. And in Help, a lot more information under Web Forms. And in Contribute, it's good to look at this, and the Linux Mint developers provide an outstanding operating system for you. So it's always good to contribute some to the project to keep it going, if even a few dollars. Let's look at the desktop. And you can see that it's set up very similar to Windows. You have your icons on the desktop, panel on the bottom, menu. And in menu, you see all the software that comes by default with Linux Mint, make it useful right out of the box. And below that, the software is divided out by category. And something that's unique to Linux Mint is if you go to some software that you'd like to uninstall, for instance, I'll go to LibreOffice Base. If you right-click it, you can uninstall it from the menu. A really nice feature. Then on the left, we have the favorites bar. We have the shutdown button, log out, lock screen, access to your files, terminal, where you can put commands in for Linux Mint, the system settings, software manager, and browser, and by default it is Firefox. Let's look at the software manager. Now in software, you have literally thousands of free software for your use that you can install. And first thing you see, there's the editor's picks. And then below that, categories, software divided out by different categories. And you can do a search for an individual piece of software that you'd like. For instance, I use Vocal Screen Recorder. And if I put in the first few letters of Vocal Screen Recorder, it should pull it up for us. And there it is. And double click on that. And I'll bring up the window to describe what the software is, what it does. It has the number of stars that are on average the people that have done reviews give it. And then if you scroll down, you can look at some of the comments that people have made about the software. And then you can uninstall, well, you can install or uninstall from this window. Okay, let's look at system settings. And Linux, and particularly Linux Mint, has a number of different settings that you can use. And you can see that there's just a ton of different settings for appearance and preferences, for your hardware, administration, so that you can really make Linux Mint your own. Just make it exactly the way you want it. Okay, we're back on the desktop. I wanted to show you the bottom panel. You have your icons, very similar to the favorites. You have access to files, terminal, browser, and to change desktops. And then over on the right, there's a update manager. And if there's a blue exclamation mark, that means there are updates available for Linux Mint. If it's up to date, there'll be a green check mark. And the icon to show that you're connected to a network, your sound settings, an icon to show that your battery is fully charged in a laptop or if you're connected to electrical source, the time, and by default it will come 24 hours, or you can change that to 12 hours. Let's look at the memory usage that Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition uses. If you go to terminal, put in the command free space -h, enter. It shows that right now, without anything else running but the operating system, 517 megabytes are being used. Now this is nice because Windows 10 uses on average a bit more than a gigabyte of memory usage. So Linux Mint Cinnamon uses about half of the system resources that Windows 10 uses. So it's a nice operating system to put on most any computer. So far, we've been looking at Linux Mint, the Cinnamon Edition, but Linux Mint does come in other editions too. Now we're looking at Linux Mint Mate Edition. And this is just a little bit different than Cinnamon Mint, than the Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition, but there are very many similarities. The desktop looks similar. The panel is just a bit different. Icons are just spaced a bit different, and the menu is quite a bit different than the Cinnamon Edition. And the control center, which is actually the settings on Cinnamon Edition, is a bit different than the settings look on Cinnamon Edition. So Mate's edition has not quite as many settings as the Cinnamon Edition, but it does have quite a few too. A ton of different settings that you can use to make your operating system exactly the way you want it. The memory is, or the memory usage is a bit different. It is a little lighter on your computer. So let's take a look at that. Okay, it is using 384 megabytes of memory, And you remember on the Cinnamon Edition it was 517 megabytes. So this is a better edition to use on older computers. This is another flavor of Linux Mint, and this is the XFCE edition. And you can see that the desktop also very similar to the Cinnamon Edition. Not many differences at all, except menu is a little different. And then there's settings too. On the menu you can go to settings and you have individual settings, or you can go to settings this way. And there are fewer settings than Cinnamon or Mate Edition. But there again, there are many settings in this that you can use to make the desktop and the operating system just the way you want it. And let's look at the memory usage in this edition. And this is a lighter version again, using fewer system resources than Cinnamon, or a little less than Mate also. 348 megabytes are being used right now. So this is a real nice addition to use on an older computer too. We have one more Linux Mint edition to look at. This is the LMDE Edition. Now, what's unique about this is that Linux Mint is based on another Linux distro, which is Ubuntu, which in turn is based on another Linux distro, which is Debian. Now, LMDE is Linux Mint Debian Edition. In other words, it's based directly on the Debian edition. And it's a really nice distro in itself too. It is Cinnamon based and very similar to the Linux Mint Cinnamon based that's based on Ubuntu. So another nice addition to take a look at and check out on your computer, see if you like it. Linux Mint is a free and open operating system, an excellent choice to replace Windows. It includes most of the installed software you need to get up and running right out of the box. You'll be able to peruse the internet, listen to music, watch videos, peruse your photos, even work with your Microsoft Office documents. Windows users who want to try Linux would feel quite comfortable with Linux Mint. Check out the Linux Mint website and switch today. I plan to do more videos about Linux, Windows, software, and whatever crazy ideas that may enter my head. So subscribe and like below. Okay? Thank you, and we'll see you.